Is right now a good time to buy a home? You know, this question gets asked a lot, and obviously it's extremely situational. It really all just depends on your specific situation and what you're hoping to achieve when you buy your next home. Hi, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Shaun Nichols. I'm a realtor with Exp Realty, and I want to be your friend in the real estate business. Now, as we talk about buying a home, there are three big topics that I want to cover for you. The first is what's happening in the real estate market, specifically for the South Carolina Midlands. The second is why we're not expecting a real estate crash in the next couple of years. And the third is what are the projections for what's going to happen for the rest of 2022. So if that's something you're interested in, I encourage you to go ahead and watch this video all the way to the end. But let's go ahead and jump into what's happening in the current real estate market for the South Carolina Midlands. Now, there are really two big factors that are impacting everything that's going on in real estate as of right now, and that's inventory and mortgage rates. And if you take a look at this chart here, this is a chart that shows weekly mortgage rates from Freddie Mac going all the way back to January of 2022, up until the most recent data we have today. And what it shows us is that home prices have been on a relatively steady increase from January of this year all the way till June, where we saw a peak. And now we're seeing a lot of volatility that's going on in mortgage rates from week to week. And a lot of that is because of what the Fed has been trying to do to combat inflation. As you know, we've seen record high inflation this year, and the Fed is doing what they can to bring that back down to combat those inflationary pressures. But one of the things that happens when the Fed starts to combat inflation is we start to get this fear of a recession and how that can affect the housing market. And that's a big fear for a lot of home buyers, is what's gonna happen to home prices and interest rates and the housing market altogether if we do enter into a recession. So I wanna go ahead and show you some data here that shows you what's happened over the past couple of recessions so that we can know what we should anticipate to happen in the near future. So let's talk a little bit about what is a recession, because you know it's kind of a political issue right now, and I'm not really going to get into the politics of it, but the National Bureau of Economic Research defines a recession as a significant decline in economic activity spread across the economy lasting more than a few months, more visibly in real gross domestic product, real income, employment, industrial production, and wholesale retail sales. Now that's the technical definition of a recession. However, it's a widely held belief that a recession is 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth. And if we look at this chart right here, you can see that going all the way back to the 1940s, every time we've had 2 quarters of negative growth, it's been called a recession. And that's actually caused a lot of fear for home buyers and sellers because they're not really sure what's gonna happen with the market. But the number one way to combat that fear is to take a look at the facts and the data and see what they show us normally happens during a recession and how that's going to impact you as a home buyer or seller. So it's important to note that just because the US is in a recession, it does not mean that home prices are gonna come down. If you take a look at this chart here, this is a look at the past 6 recessions that we've had in the United States. And if you notice, 4 out of the past 6 recessions, home prices actually increased. I think what's driving a lot of people's emotional responses right now is what happened in 2008, because it's so fresh in everybody's mind. But it's really important to note that this is nothing like what happened in 2008. First off, a recession didn't cause the housing market crash. A housing market crash caused the recession. Also in 2008, we had a large supply of buyer's inventory on the market. And that is nothing like what we've got going on right now, and I'm gonna get into that here in just a moment. But like I alluded to just a second ago, let's take a look at what happens during a recession to mortgage interest rates. If you take a look at this chart here, it actually shows what's happened to mortgage interest rates during the last 6 recessions. And we can see that every single time, interest rates have come down during the recession as they are attempting to rebuild the economy. Now, we can't guarantee that mortgage interest rates are going to come down, but I think history points a pretty clear picture as to what we can expect over the next couple of years. Now, let's talk about the other big thing that as a home buyer, you're probably curious to know. Are we going to see a housing crash? And to be honest with you, the answer is no. I've seen a ton of people on social media and sensational news headlines calling for a real estate market crash or calling it a correction, but that's just not in the cards, and let me show you why. I think part of the reason that so many people are predicting this or hoping for it is that 2008 is so fresh in everybody's mind, and it was such a big shock that nobody saw coming that now they think that this is going to happen every single time, and that's just simply not the case. So let me show you why this time is so much different than actually what happened in 2008. Now, if we think back to 2008, we were actually in a buyer's market. We had an oversupply of homes going into 2008, which means we had more people wanting to sell their home than there were buyers that could buy them. And that's really the only thing that brings home prices down, is having an oversupply of inventory. Right now, we are severely undersupplied in inventory. It's simple supply and demand. There are more buyers looking to buy homes right now than there are sellers willing to sell them. So they're stark opposites from what happened in 2008. And the fact is, in today's market, we just don't have enough homes to sell. This chart here is a look of existing homes here in the South Carolina Midlands. And you'll see we have about 1.5 months supply of homes on the market. Now let's compare that to the peak of the housing crash in 2011, where we had just over 10 months supply of inventory. And that's because there was a much lower buyer demand in 2008, and we had more people trying to sell than we did people wanting to buy. We have the exact opposite happening now, where there are almost no homes available for sale and everybody wants to buy a home. Now, if you think home prices are gonna decrease, you have to build the case that we're gonna see a huge increase in inventory coming to the market and a huge slowdown of buyer demand, and we just have no indicators that that's gonna happen. So I think you can see by taking a look at the numbers and the amount of homes that would have to come on the market and the amount of buyer slowdown it would take for the market to crash, you can actually see that it's just not in the cards. And I feel like what's happening now, people are starting to see, we are starting to see some inventory returning to the market. We're starting to see more sellers list their homes and buyer demand slowing down due to the increase in interest rates. However, we have to remember that 2020 and 2021 were not normal years. We're not even back to what it was like in 2019, which was a pretty good but still seller's market. I think this analogy explains it best. It's almost like in 2020 and 2021, we were driving down the interstate at 100 miles an hour. The market was white hot. It was crazier than we have ever seen it in the history of the United States. But this year has come around, the interest rates are coming up. It's kind of like we saw blue lights in our rear view mirror, so we've slammed on the brakes and slowed down to 60 miles an hour. Now, when you slam on your brakes and slow down, it feels like you're crawling. You've slowed down from 100 miles an hour to 60 miles an hour. It feels like you're not going anywhere, but you're still going at or above the speed limit. And that's what we're seeing right now. 2020 and 2021 were so crazy and so hot that any type of slowdown makes it feel like the market is crawling and returning to a buyer's market, but it's really not. It's just returning to the same type of market we had in 2019. And we haven't even reached those 2019 levels, which was still very much a seller's market. So let's talk about what everybody really wants to know. If we aren't gonna see a housing crash in the next year, what is gonna happen? But before we get into that, if this video has brought any value to you or you've learned something in this video, could you do me a favor and hit subscribe on this video? We're trying to reach 500 subscribers by the end of the month of August. So if you could do me a favor, hit subscribe, it would be greatly appreciated. But let's go ahead and jump into what all the experts are saying is gonna happen for the rest of 2022. So we started this video with talking about interest rates. And one thing that every buyer needs to know, or at least wants to know, is what's gonna happen with interest rates for the rest of 2022. So I went ahead and pulled together this chart for you to take a look at. So this is a chart of mortgage rate projections that was just released in July from the 4 biggest names in real estate data. And if we look at this data, we can average them together over each quarter, and we can see what those averages are on the far right side. And what this chart is telling us is that mortgage rates are projected to stay relatively the same throughout the third quarter of 2023, right around that 5.25, possibly dropping down a little bit in the third quarter of 2023. So that's great news for buyers who may have been priced out of the market during 2020 and 2022 when we were seeing those mortgage interest rates really start to climb. It's good news that we may see some stabilization in the market so that we have time to go ahead and put those homes under contract and not expecting those mortgage interest rates to shoot up on you as soon as you find your right house. So it's a little bit of a silver lining, according to Joel Kahn. There could be a potential silver lining for the market, he added, as stabilizing mortgage rates and rising inventory may bring some buyers back to the market during the second half of the year. And we certainly hope that that's the case, that these mortgage interest rates kind of level off and stay stable so that some of or half of the buyers that stopped looking for homes in 2020 and 2022 because the market just became way too competitive actually return to the market and are able to find the right home for them and their families. Another question that you're probably curious about is what's going to happen with home prices through the rest of the year. So we actually pulled together a chart of the 7 biggest names in real estate and what they're projecting over the next few months. And if we average them all together, we can see that we're anticipating an average increase in home prices of about 10%. Home prices are already up 12.7% so far this year, and we're projecting another 10% increase through the end of 2022. The median home price in the South Carolina Midlands currently sits at $274,818, and a 10% increase would bring that median sales price up to $303,124. That's a change of over $28,000 between now and the end of this year. So I'd like to wrap this video up by showing you one more quick graphic that we put together that you really should consider as a home buyer. These are the 3 reasons that buying a home now could be a good move for you. We're seeing fewer multiple offer situations. We've gone from an average of 5.5 offers on every home in April of 2022 nationally to 3.4 as of June. So it's still a very competitive market, however, not nearly as competitive as it was a few months ago. We can also see that there are fewer homes selling for above list price. We went from over 61% of homes selling for over list price to just 51%. Now, 51% is still a large number of homes selling for more than list price. However, it's a 10% drop in just 3 months. And last is the supply of inventory of homes is growing in the South Carolina Midlands. We've actually seen inventory increase by over 30% from this time last year. So if you're considering buying a home, like we said at the beginning of this video, it's very situational and it all depends on the current situation that you find yourself in, as well as what your real estate goals are. If you'd like some more specific information about buying a home or selling your current home in this current market, I encourage you to reach out to us. I put a link in the description for you to schedule a quick and exploratory call with us. No pressure, no sales pitch, just to figure out your specific situation and if buying or selling your home right now is the right move for you. I'll also include in that link that we can set you up with an exclusive list of homes that are tailored directly for your needs and exactly what you're looking for. So I put that link in the description for you to schedule that quick call with myself or Michelle, just so we can provide you with that specific advice and we can meet your real estate needs. And if you enjoyed this video, YouTube thinks that you're going to enjoy this video next.